Hi there, I am Colin Elliott. I'm a professor of Roman history. I'm also the host of the Pax Romana podcast. This is a 6-part video series on the origins of ancient Rome. I've already done part 1 and part 2. Part 1 looked at Italy from sort of the deep beginnings of its human history around 4000 BC, all the way up to about 1000 BC. And then I also just finished the video on Italy's first cities. So we looked at the rise of city-states and indeed the rise of Rome as a city-state in the 8th through 5th centuries BC or so. Now, today we get to the founding of ancient Rome and the legend of Romulus and Remus. So we'll get to that in just a second. Once you finish this video, in the next few weeks, I will upload videos 4, 5, and 6. 4 will be on the kings that follow after the founding of Rome. So we'll look at that. And then the Etruscans, a culture which overtakes Rome and really sets in motion a lot of the religious and military and economic and cultural developments that are in many ways associated with Rome. Some of those come out of an earlier culture called the Etruscan culture, and then the Etruscans sort of vanish over the next few centuries. So we'll talk about that culture. And then in video number 6, we'll look at the end of the Roman monarchy and the rise of the Roman Republic. Key event in the history of Rome. And we'll finish our video series with that. And if people like this series, I guess I might do some more. But, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and that will send me the signal at least that people want me to go ahead and spend some time making videos like this one. Feel free also to leave comments about any feedback that you have as well. All right, without further ado, let's get to part 3. Rome has a very rich mythical history about its monarchy. But before we get into that history, is any of it true? Did the city-state of Rome actually have a monarchy? Were there kings that ruled in Rome? Yeah, monarchies and autocratic forms of government like tyrannies were common in the region at this time. These kings would have had a body of advisors, which were probably the predecessors to Rome's senators when we get to the Republican period. These people, these men really, may have even chosen the king. They were leading nobles in the city, the landowners, the wealthiest individuals in the city of Rome. And it may have even been the case that when a king died, and there was a period of time in which a new king had to be either selected or appointed or confirmed or whatever that process might have been. We don't really know the mechanics of it in reality. We just have the mythical stories. But it may have been the case that members of the Senate may very well have served in a kind of intermediary role in between kings. We know that we have hard evidence, I should say, about the Roman monarchy because of a stone that was found under the Roman Forum. It's called the lapis niger. It dates from the early to middle of the 6th century BC. That is, it is the black stone, and it is the only firmly dated inscription from the period of the Roman monarchy. It was part of a larger shrine, perhaps, or complex in which perhaps people may have assembled, almost a kind of forum or a public gathering place. And the reason it's called the Black Stone is because during the Republic, the Roman Republic, this stone was covered up with black marble. And then it was later found, much later, under the Forum. So on your screen is an image of the stone right here. It's got a script that is deciphered, that has been deciphered by experts. The letters are a kind of Proto-Latin and early Latin, and that's indeed the language of the script as well. It reads, though, not left to right, left to right, left to right, but it reads sort of back and forth and back and forth. It sort of snakes like that. And numerous Italian scripts, including apparently the Etruscan script. We'll talk about the Etruscans in another video. Also reads like that. So the inscription mentions a king, and here's an English translation of the inscription right here. Whosoever defiles this spot, let him be forfeit to the shades of the underworld. So pretty significant penalty. And whosoever contaminates this spot with refuge, it is right for the king. Okay, so there's our king. After due process of law, so the king is not absolute. There is some kind of legal system. Again, maybe this represents deliberation in a body of nobles, like a kind of senate. Maybe it represents just some customs. Does it represent something that was written down or not? We don't really know. But after due process of law, the person who litters, that's basically what we're talking about here, will have his property confiscated. Whoever persists in traveling this road and fails to take the proper detour, by due process of law, let him be sold to the highest bidder. So the other thing we learn, in addition to information about the monarchy and law in Rome in this period, is that obviously slavery is a standard penalty for forms of law breaking, including traveling on the wrong spot. But Rome was believed to be founded, at least by the Romans themselves, by a man named Romulus. And Romulus's story is a pretty interesting one. So his descendants do not actually come from Rome. They come from a city called Alba Longa, which is a bit further up the Tiber River into the hills in Latium. And in Alba Longa, the city, reigned a king, and his name was Numitor. He was the distant descendant of some Trojans that fled into the area, supposedly. Numitor was overthrown by his brother, a usurper named Amulius, and Amulius therefore became king of Alba Longa. And in any good coup, there needs to be some further dynastic murders to ensure that nobody else of the old regime can later come and kill the new king. So Amulius has his brother's sons killed. He forces the daughter of the king to become a perpetual virgin as a servant of the goddess Vesta. So she has to take a vow of celibacy, so that will prevent any further heirs from being born. However, this woman, this daughter of the old king Numitor, receives a visitation by the god of war. That's Mars. And in this visitation, Mars sleeps with Numitor's daughter, and she gives birth to two boys, twins, Romulus and Remus. These, of course, would go on to be the legendary founders of Rome. Amulius decides to have the twins murdered. He doesn't just do it outright. He puts them in a basket and has them floated down the Tiber River to be exposed. Interesting parallels already. We see a virgin give birth to a divine offspring, and then we see a kind of savior figure, in this case savior figures, being floated down a river in a basket. And then these two boys are rescued, and the rescuer is a lupa in Latin. Now that can mean wolf, female wolf. It's also a term for a prostitute as well. In the mythological story, it's a wolf, and on your screen right now, you're actually looking at a she-wolf nursing the two children, Romulus and Remus. And what this image is of, by the way, is what is called the Capitoline wolf. And the two twins down at the bottom, there's Romulus and Remus right there. These were added not too long ago in an ancient historian's view of time, so just a few hundred years ago. But the wolf itself has been a sort of a matter of controversy. There are some there's a dating study that's been done of the bronze, which suggests that it is not too much older than the twins, so that this wolf is less than 1,000 years old. But there are some historians that doggedly maintain that based on the style of the wolf and the type of bronze that was used, and I know very little about these kind of metallurgical details, but there's sort of an adamant group that suggests that this statue is in fact very, very old, that it may be as old as the Roman Republic itself, that this wolf came out of the Etruscan culture. And when we talk about the Etruscans later, you'll see why that's so significant and why, if that idea is correct, that this is an Etruscan statue, why this represents yet another interesting influence on the Romans via the Etruscans. We know from some ancient accounts that there was a statue that probably looked like this in Rome. We also have corroborating evidence in a coin. This is the earliest image of a she-wolf that we can firmly date, a Roman she-wolf that we can firmly date. This is a coin, silver coin, that was minted in Rome, one of the earlier coins, the earlier silver coins that's minted in Rome in the early to mid 3rd century. And again, you can see the similarities, right? Here, the she-wolf stands alert, sort of in a defensive posture, guarding the twins. And on the coin, we have a very similar situation, right? With the twins underneath and the she-wolf standing guard. Now, even those that advocate for a later date for this statue are open to the idea that maybe the twins, maybe the wolf are meant to replace a statue that maybe was badly damaged or worn by the time that this statue was made. And so even though it's of medieval construction, that it is still based on an earlier statue that just doesn't survive. And this coin would support that possibility too. It could also support the idea that this statue is in fact very, very old, much older than the Middle Ages. Anyway, the story of Romulus and Remus continues. As they grow up, they learn of their true identities. They learn that they're the grandsons of Numitor and that he has been deposed. They learn about their mother having to have taken a vow of chastity, and they decide to return with an army back to Alba Longa, and they give the boot to Amulius, and they restore their grandfather, Numitor, to the throne. Instead of staying in Alba Longa, the twins decide to found a new city near the site where they were found. It's a great site. We've already talked about this on video number 2, and you can go back and watch that to see the advantages available at the site of Rome. One of the benefits are these hills right by the Tiber River, great defensive locations. And Romulus and Remus are initially unsure of which hill they're going to found the city on. Romulus says that the Palatine Hill is going to be the hill of the new city, where the new city is based. And Remus says that the Aventine Hill, a little bit further south, is actually the better hill. Now, in a story that really fits the Roman ideas about religion, the two men decide to look to the gods, and the gods speak through various natural phenomena, things like lightning strikes, or thunder, or the flights of birds, or the entrails of animals. And in this case, the gods deliver a sign. 6 birds fly across the sky right near Remus. This is interpreted as a sign from the gods. But not long after that happens, on Romulus's side of the sky, 12 birds fly. Now, the problem here is, which is more important? The brother that was visited by birds first, or the brother that was visited by more birds? It's unclear, right? And the Romans have this whole idea that if you don't get religious signs correct, there will be all sorts of conflicts and devastation. Romulus and Remus cannot resolve their dispute. They begin engaging in a physical conflict. Romulus kills his brother Remus in the struggle. He sets up the city on his chosen hill, the Palatine Hill, on April 21st, 753 BC, plows its sacred boundary called the Pomerium, and the story of Rome begins. But, and we'll get to the stories of the kings in the next video, Romulus still has a lot of work to do. He needs men, he also needs women, and we'll see in the next video he will achieve both of these through some challenging and maybe unconventional means. And I'll leave the telling of that tale to the next video. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for checking out this video. I very much hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please like the video or leave a comment, or even better, subscribe to the channel. All of these things boost the channel tremendously in the YouTube algorithm. I also hope that you'll consider checking out my podcast, the Pax Romana Podcast. It uploads to YouTube, but it's also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about anywhere else you can get podcasts. Finally, if you want to, you can follow me on X. Just look up at Prof CPE, at PROF CPE, and you can find me there. And of course, I'll continue to upload YouTube videos about once a week. Hope you enjoy. Thanks a bunch. We'll see you next time.